Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about something pretty wild. What it would be like if you just woke up one morning in a Victorian home surrounded by all those hidden dangers they had no idea about. I mean, you think your place has issues? Wait till you hear what was lurking in those fancy Victorian houses. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. Always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. All right, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to 1870s England, and trust me, you're going to be real grateful for that mattress by the time we're done. So, congratulations, you just woke up in a Victorian bedroom. Your eyes flutter open to darkness. Not the gentle darkness of your bedroom at home with the little blinking lights from electronics and the soft glow of streetlights filtering through the blinds. No, this is proper darkness, heavy and thick. The mattress beneath you isn't the memory foam you're used to. It's lumpy horsehair stuffed into ticking fabric. The springs, literal metal springs, poke at your back in odd places. You shift a little, trying to get comfortable. That distinctive crinkle and rustle isn't your sheets. It's straw. The Victorians often put straw in their mattresses for extra cushioning. Not exactly memory foam, is it? The air feels different, heavier somehow. There's a smell you can't quite place. Not exactly unpleasant, but unfamiliar. Wood smoke, coal dust, something musty and old. Beeswax candles, linseed oil from furniture polish. Your breath makes little clouds in the frigid morning air. Even the wealthy Victorian homes were freezing in the morning. No central heating here, just fireplaces, and none of them are lit yet. And that's when you hear it. Footsteps, light but purposeful, coming up what sounds like wooden stairs. The soft glow of a candle appears under the door. The door creaks open. A young woman in a plain black dress with a white apron stands there, candle in hand. The housemaid, come to light your fire before you get up. It's how all proper Victorian days begin if you're fortunate enough to be middle or upper class. "Good morning, ma'am," she says with a little curtsy. "It's 6:30. Shall I light your fire?" Before you can answer, she's already moving to the fireplace. You watch, fascinated, as she kneels down and begins laying kindling and coal. Within minutes, a small fire is crackling in the grate. "Cook says breakfast will be at 8, ma'am. Will you be wanting a bath this morning?" A bath. Now that sounds nice, until you remember that Victorian bathing involved servants hauling buckets of hot water up flights of stairs, pouring them into a metal tub that's been placed in front of the fire, and then standing around while you wash. Not exactly the private experience you're used to. "No thank you," you manage to say. "Just some water for washing, please." The maid nods and leaves, returning moments later with a porcelain pitcher and basin. She pours the steaming water into the bowl, places it on the washstand, and then lays out a towel. "Will there be anything else, ma'am?" "No, thank you. That's all." She curtsies again and withdraws, closing the door softly behind her. You throw back the heavy wool blankets and quilts and swing your legs over the side of the bed. The floor is bare wood, cold as ice beneath your feet. No wall-to-wall carpeting here, just scattered rugs that do little to ward off the chill. You make your way to the washstand and peer into the mirror above it. The glass is wavy, giving your reflection a slightly distorted look. You splash some water on your face and reach for what you assume is soap, a hard yellow bar that smells strongly of lye. The fire has taken the edge off the cold, but the room is still chilly. You look around for your clothes and spot them laid out on a chair. Petticoats, corset, dress, way more layers than you're used to. Getting dressed is going to be a project, but first, you need to use the bathroom. You look around. No ensuite here. just a chamber pot tucked discreetly under the bed. Welcome to Victorian hygiene. You decide to hold it and get dressed first. Maybe there's a proper toilet somewhere in this house. The Victorians did have flush toilets by the 1870s, though they were still something of a novelty. Dressing is a challenge. The corset alone is a puzzle, and you can't possibly lace it properly on your own. You manage to get it on loosely, along with the petticoats, and then struggle into the dress. It's not properly fastened, but it'll have to do for now. You open the bedroom door and step out into a hallway. The walls are covered in richly patterned wallpaper, deep green with gold accents. It's absolutely stunning, with an almost luminous quality to the green. Too bad it's probably full of arsenic. Yeah, that's right, that gorgeous green wallpaper. In Victorian times, they used arsenic to create that vibrant shade of green. Sheely's green, they called it, or Paris green. And it was everywhere. Wallpaper, curtains, clothing, even children's toys. The Victorians were absolutely obsessed with this particular shade, not realising they were essentially surrounding themselves with poison. When it got damp or heated, the arsenic would release into the air. People breathing it in would get sick, headaches, nausea, even death in extreme cases. But the Victorians had no idea. They just thought the wallpaper was pretty. You make a mental note not to lick the walls. Not that you were planning to. You make your way downstairs, one hand on the banister to steady yourself. The stairs are steep and narrow, another hidden danger of Victorian homes. Uneven steps were common, especially in the back stairs used by servants. One misplaced foot and you could take a nasty tumble. The main staircase, though, is grand and well constructed. The wealthy Victorians spared no expense on the parts of their homes that visitors would see. It's the hidden areas, servant stairs, back rooms, where corners were cut. You reach the bottom of the stairs and find yourself in an entrance hall. It's dimly lit, with heavy curtains blocking most of the morning light. Gas lamps flicker on the walls, casting an eerie glow. Another Victorian innovation that brought both convenience and danger. Gas lighting was a huge improvement over candles, but gas leaks were common and could lead to explosions or asphyxiation. A delicious smell wafts from what you assume is the direction of the kitchen. Bacon, fresh bread, coffee, your stomach growls. Maybe breakfast will help you make sense of this strange situation. You follow the smell down a hallway, past a formal dining room with a massive table that could seat 12, and into a cosy morning room. A smaller table is set for breakfast, with silver dishes keeping food warm over small flames. You almost laugh at the abundance laid out for just one person. Eggs, bacon, sausages, fish, toast, muffins, jam, and a silver pot of what smells like strong coffee. The Victorians did not believe in light breakfasts. They considered a hearty morning meal essential for health and energy. You sit down, and a maid immediately appears to serve you. You notice her hands are red and chapped. Working with lye soap, chemical cleaning products, and hot water all day would do that. Household servants faced all kinds of occupational hazards, chemical burns, back injuries from hauling water and coal, respiratory problems from dust and fumes. "Would you like tea or coffee, ma'am?" she asks. "Coffee, please," you reply, watching as she pours a dark liquid into your cup. You take a sip and nearly choke. It's incredibly strong and bitter. Victorian coffee was often adulterated with chicory or even burnt sugar to stretch expensive coffee beans. And the milk? Well, let's just say pasteurization wasn't standard practice yet. Speaking of milk, that's another hidden killer of the Victorian home. Milk was often purified with borax, an alkali that neutralized the taste of spoiled milk but did nothing to kill the bacteria that might be lurking in it. Thousands of children died from drinking contaminated milk. In the Victorian era, you decide to skip the milk and drink your coffee black. The food, at least, looks good. You help yourself to some eggs and toast, avoiding the sausages. Victorian food safety standards were, well, non-existent, really. Food adulteration was common. Bread might contain alum or chalk to make it whiter. Sausages might include all sorts of questionable fillers. Even tea wasn't safe. Sometimes it contained actual iron filings to make it look like higher quality black tea. As you eat, you gaze around the morning room. It's beautifully decorated with floral wallpaper, thankfully not green, comfortable furniture and knickknacks everywhere. The Victorians loved their stuff. Every surface is covered with photographs, small sculptures, vases, books and decorative boxes. Through the window you can see a garden coming to life in the morning light. A gardener is already at work tending to flower beds. You wonder if he's using Paris green as an insecticide, another common use for the arsenic compound. The maid appears at your elbow. "Will you be receiving visitors this afternoon, ma'am? There are already 2 calling cards that have been delivered." Calling cards. Another Victorian custom. People would leave small cards with their names when they came to visit. If you were home and willing to receive them, they'd be shown in. If not, they'd just leave their card as evidence they'd made the social effort. "No," you say, not ready to face Victorian social customs when you barely understand the basics of surviving in this house. I think I'll go for a walk this morning." Fresh air sounds good right about now, away from the arsenic wallpaper and the gaslights and all the other hidden dangers lurking in this beautiful home. "Very good, ma'am. Shall I have your walking costume prepared?" Your walking costume, because Victorians couldn't just throw on jeans and a t-shirt to go outside. They needed specific outfits for specific activities. And for women, these almost always included corsets, multiple layers, and long skirts that would drag in the street muck. "Yes, please," you sigh. You might as well embrace the full Victorian experience. The maid nods and withdraws to prepare your outfit. You finish your breakfast and rise from the table, feeling slightly better with food in your stomach. You wander back into the hallway, looking for a bathroom before your walk. After checking several doors, you find what appears to be a water closet, a small room with an early flush toilet. It's a simple design, a wooden seat over a ceramic bowl with a pull chain to release water from a tank above. Not exactly modern plumbing, but better than the chamber pot. You use the facilities, marvelling at this piece of Victorian technology. The flush toilet was a major advancement in sanitation, though early models had their issues. Methane from sewers could build up in pipes and occasionally ignite or even explode when exposed to a flame. Thomas Crapper, yes, that was his real name, would later improve the design with a siphon valve to prevent sewer gases from coming back into the house. After washing your hands in a small basin, you return to your bedroom to find the maid waiting with your walking costume. It's a dark blue affair with a fitted jacket, a bustle at the back, and a skirt that brushes the floor. "Shall I help you dress, ma'am?" You nod, realizing there's no way you're getting into this contraption on your own. The maid helps you out of your loosely fastened morning dress and properly tightens your corset. You gasp as she pulls the laces. "Not too tight," you manage to say. She looks surprised but loosens it a bit. Victorian beauty standards valued tiny waists, achieved through tight lacing that could compress internal organs and cause all sorts of health problems. Layer by layer, she helps you into the walking costume. Chemise, corset, petticoats, skirt, jacket. By the time you're fully dressed, you feel like you're wearing half your closet from home. "Your hat and gloves, ma'am," the maid says, presenting a small hat with feathers and a pair of kid leather gloves. No respectable Victorian lady would go outside with bare hands or an uncovered head. You put them on, feeling increasingly like you're in a costume drama. The maid hands you a parasol as well. Not just a fashion accessory, but protection from the sun. pale skin was desirable, a sign that you didn't have to work outdoors like the lower classes. Fully equipped for your Victorian walk, you head downstairs and out the front door into the morning air. The street is already bustling with activity. Horses clip-clop past, pulling carriages. A street vendor calls out selling flowers. Children in ragged clothes play in a side alley. You take a deep breath, relieved to be out of the house with its hidden dangers. But even here, there are hazards. The street is littered with horse manure. The air is thick with coal smoke from thousands of chimneys. And if it starts to rain, those beautiful green dyes in your clothing might begin to leach arsenic onto your skin. Still, it feels good to move, even restricted by your corset and multiple layers. You set off down the street, parasol in hand, taking in the sights and sounds of Victorian England. You notice other ladies out for their morning constitutional, nodding politely as they pass. A gentleman tips his hat to you, and you incline your head in response, playing along with the social customs. As you walk, your mind drifts back to all the hidden dangers you've already encountered in just a few hours in a Victorian home. The arsenic wallpaper, the gas lighting, the potentially contaminated food and milk, the steep, uneven stairs. It's a wonder anyone survived. And yet, millions did. The Victorians were resilient, adapting to their world just as we adapt to ours. They didn't know about the dangers lurking in their beautiful homes, just as we might be unaware of hazards in our own modern environments that future generations will find shocking. You realise how lucky you are to live in an age of building codes, food safety regulations and consumer protection laws. All those boring bureaucratic rules that we take for granted actually keep us safe from the kinds of dangers that Victorians faced every day. Your muscles are starting to feel a bit tight from the corset, and you decide to head back to the house. You've had enough Victorian adventure for one morning. You turn around, watching your step carefully on the uneven cobblestones. Your heavy skirts swish around your ankles as you walk, and you find yourself settling into a rhythm, becoming more comfortable in this strange attire. The grand house comes back into view, its facade impressive with tall windows and ornate detailing. Despite knowing about the hidden killers within, you can't help but admire its beauty. The Victorians certainly knew how to build things to last. As you approach the front steps, you notice something you missed earlier. The boot scraper by the door, an essential tool in an era of muddy, manure-filled streets. You carefully clean your boots before entering, one small concession to Victorian propriety. The house feels warmer now that the day has progressed. Fires burn in several rooms, taking the chill from the air. You make your way to what appears to be a drawing room and sink into a plush armchair, grateful to be off your feet. A soft sigh escapes as you settle deeper into the chair. Your muscles gradually relax, the stiffness from the corset becoming less noticeable as you find a comfortable position. The room is quiet, except for the gentle ticking of a clock on the mantelpiece and the occasional crackle from the fireplace. Your breathing naturally slows, finding a peaceful rhythm while you gaze around the elegantly appointed room with its heavy drapes and ornate furniture. The warmth of the drawing room makes your eyelids heavy, but a soft knock at the door interrupts your moment of peace. The maid enters with a silver tray. "Your mail, ma'am," she says, placing several envelopes and a newspaper on the small table beside you. "And cook would like to know your preferences for dinner this evening." You blink, trying to imagine what a proper Victorian dinner might include. "Whatever cook recommends will be fine," you reply, taking the safe option. The maid nods and withdraws, leaving you with your correspondence. You pick up the newspaper first, the Times, dated May 1878. So that's when you are. The headlines talk about tensions with Russia, debates in Parliament and various society events. Nothing about time travellers appearing in Victorian homes, thankfully. The envelopes contain invitations to teas, dinner parties, and a charity bazaar. Apparently, your Victorian self is quite the social butterfly. You set them aside, more interested in exploring this house and its hidden dangers. You rise from the chair, feeling the constraint of your corset as you do. The Victorians really did themselves no favours with these torture devices. Restricted breathing, compressed internal organs, deformed ribs, all in the name of a fashionably tiny waist. And that's not even mentioning the damage done by the weight of all these skirts hanging from your compressed waist. No wonder Victorian women were always fainting. And speaking of fashion dangers, many Victorian clothing items were dyed with toxic substances. That vibrant green dress in the wardrobe probably contains arsenic. The beautiful red flowers on that hat, likely coloured with mercury. Even the makeup on the dressing table, lead, belladonna, arsenic again. Beauty was quite literally poisonous in the Victorian era. You wander from the drawing room into what appears to be a library. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves line the walls, filled with leather-bound volumes. A writing desk sits in one corner, complete with inkwell, blotter, and a stack of writing paper. The room smells of leather, paper, and beeswax. It's peaceful here, removed from the bustle of the household. You trail your fingers along the spines of the books, reading titles on history, natural philosophy, poetry, and novels. A large globe stands in one corner, showing the vast British Empire in pink. Next to it, a glass case contains various curiosities, shells, fossils, a stuffed exotic bird with brilliant plumage. Taxidermy was hugely popular in Victorian homes. They loved bringing nature inside, whether it was pressed flowers, stuffed animals, or cases of pinned butterflies. But the methods used to preserve these specimens often involved arsenic soap or mercuric chloride. Even their decorative items could be deadly. You move to the writing desk and sit down, curious about what your Victorian self might have been working on. A half-finished letter lies on the blotter, written in a flowing hand that's not yours. It mentions garden plans and an upcoming visit from someone named Charlotte. The ink is still in liquid form in a small glass well. Iron gall ink, probably. The standard writing ink of the time. It contains tannic acid, which can be corrosive enough to eventually eat through paper. Not immediately dangerous to you, but worth noting as another everyday item with hazardous properties. A soft chiming from a clock on the mantelpiece tells you it's now noon. The house seems to have come fully alive while you were reading. You can hear movement downstairs, the staff preparing lunch perhaps. You rise and continue your exploration, moving into the hallway and toward the back of the house. The kitchen would be interesting to see, but you're not sure if it would be proper for the lady of the house to intrude on the cook's domain. Victorian homes operated on strict hierarchies, with everyone knowing their place. Instead, you find yourself in a small room that appears to be a kind of office or business room. A desk contains household account books, receipts, and various documents. This is where the practical business of running a Victorian household would take place. You flip through one of the account books, fascinated by the meticulous records. Every penny spent is accounted for. Wages for servants, food purchases, coal deliveries, dress fabrics, charitable donations. Running a Victorian household was essentially like managing a small business. The coal deliveries catch your eye. Victorian homes went through enormous amounts of coal to heat all those fireplaces. The resulting coal dust and smoke were major health hazards, contributing to respiratory diseases and the infamous London fog, actually smog created by coal smoke combining with natural fog. You close the book and notice a cabinet in the corner. Opening it reveals bottles of medicine and household remedies. You pick one up cautiously. Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup. The label reads, "For children teething." You nearly drop the bottle when you remember what this actually contains: morphine. Victorian medicines were often laced with opiates, cocaine, or alcohol. This soothing syrup was essentially liquid morphine given to babies to stop them crying. It certainly stopped the crying by drugging infants into unconsciousness. Some never woke up. You carefully replace the bottle and check a few others. Laudanum, a tincture of opium, arsenic pills advertised as a complexion improver, something called female pills that promises to cure obstructions and irregularities peculiar to the female form. The Victorian medicine cabinet was a veritable poison cabinet by modern standards, and these were legitimate, commercially sold products, not some back-alley concoctions. It's a wonder anyone survived their treatments. A soft knock at the door interrupts your snooping. It's the maid again. "Luncheon is served in the morning room, ma'am," she says. You thank her and make your way back to the cosy room where you had breakfast. A light meal has been laid out. Cold meats, bread, cheese, and fruit. Simple by Victorian standards, which is fine by you. You eat cautiously, still wary of food safety. The bread seems fresh at least, and the fruit has been carefully washed and peeled. You decide to risk the cheese but avoid the meat. Better safe than sorry. After lunch, you're not sure what to do with yourself. What did Victorian ladies do with their afternoons? You remember reading that social calls were often made between 3 and 5 p.m. Perhaps you're expected somewhere, but no, the maid would have reminded you if you had engagements. You decide to explore upstairs, curious about the rest of the house. The staircase creaks slightly under your weight as you ascend. Victorian construction was generally solid, but not perfect. At least this main staircase is well built, unlike the narrow, steep servant stairs that cause countless accidents. The upper floor contains several more bedrooms, a nursery, empty. Does your Victorian self have no children? And what appears to be a sewing room. You peek into each, noting the decor and potential hazards. The nursery is particularly interesting. It's cheerful, with alphabet blocks and wooden toys scattered about, but you notice a painted rocking horse in the corner, its bright red and green paint likely containing lead. Lead paint was standard for children's toys, furniture, and room decorations. Children would chew on their toys or crib rails, ingesting the sweet-tasting lead and suffering neurological damage as a result. Next to the rocking horse sits a beautiful doll with a porcelain head and fabric body. Its rosy cheeks are probably painted with lead or mercury-based pigments. Even the fabric might be dyed with toxic chemicals. You leave the nursery feeling a new appreciation for modern toy safety regulations. The sewing room contains a table with a hand-cranked Singer sewing machine, a relatively new innovation for home use in this period. Beside it are baskets of fabric, spools of thread, and various sewing notions. You run your hand over a piece of emerald green fabric, then jerk it away, remembering the arsenic dyes. Better not to touch anything too colourful. A dressmaker's dummy stands in the corner, its waist impossibly small. You measure it with your hands and guess it's about 18 inches around. Your Victorian self must be dedicated to tight lacing. The window in this room provides a good view of the back garden. It's a formal affair with geometric beds, gravel paths, and a small fountain. A gardener is at work spraying something on the rose bushes, probably a pesticide, and in this era that likely means more arsenic. Paris green was commonly used as an insecticide, contaminating soil and potentially the groundwater. You turn away from the window, feeling slightly overwhelmed by all these hidden dangers. Every room, every object seems to harbour some potential harm. How did the Victorians survive? But they did survive, you remind yourself. They were resilient, adaptable, and largely unaware of the risks they lived with. Just as we probably live with hazards that future generations will find shocking. You make your way back downstairs, careful on the steps. Your heavy skirts make navigation tricky, and you have to hold the banister and lift your hem slightly to see your feet. One misstep on these stairs could mean a broken neck. No wonder so many Victorian novels include dramatic falls. Back in the drawing room, you notice it's grown darker outside. The short winter day is already fading to dusk. A maid enters silently and begins lighting the gas lamps, turning small keys to release the gas, then using a long match to light each one. You watch nervously, aware of how easily gas could leak from these fixtures. Carbon monoxide poisoning was a silent killer in Victorian homes, causing headaches, confusion, and eventually death. People would go to bed feeling slightly unwell and never wake up, killed by odourless gas seeping from faulty fixtures while they slept. The room grows brighter as each lamp is lit, casting a warm glow that makes the rich colours of the furnishings more vibrant. It's beautiful, you have to admit, despite the dangers. "Will you be changing for dinner, ma'am?" the maid asks. You'd forgotten about that Victorian custom. Changing into formal clothes for the evening meal, even if dining alone at home. The prospect of getting out of this walking costume and into something else, only to change again for bed later, seems exhausting. "Yes, I suppose so," you sigh. You follow the maid upstairs to your bedroom, where she helps you out of your walking costume and into an evening dress, midnight blue silk with black lace trim. It's gorgeous, but just as restrictive as your day clothes. The dress has a modest bustle at the back, supporting the elaborate draping of the skirt. Bustles were a strange Victorian fashion invention, essentially a framework worn under the skirt to create a pronounced posterior silhouette. They made sitting awkward at best, and at worst could collapse embarrassingly, or even catch fire if a lady backed too close to a fireplace. Properly attired for dinner, you make your way back downstairs. The dining room is now set for one, with crystal, silver, and fine china laid out with mathematical precision. Multiple forks, spoons, and knives flank each side of the plate. Victorian dining etiquette was complex, with specific utensils for every conceivable food item. A footman stands ready to serve you, his expression carefully neutral. You sit down and he places a napkin in your lap before serving the first course, a clear soup in a delicate china bowl. You eat carefully, conscious of being watched and judged on your table manners. Each course is small but exquisitely prepared. Soup, fish, meat, game, vegetables, pudding, cheese, fruit. It's excessive for one person, and you can only manage a few bites of each offering. The footman serves you a small glass of sweet wine with dessert. You sip it cautiously, aware that Victorian wine might contain all sorts of additives, lead to sweeten it, or other stranger ingredients to improve colour or clarity. By the time the meal concludes, you're exhausted from maintaining proper posture and navigating the complex meal service. Victorian formality is wearing, even when dining alone. "Will you take coffee in the drawing room, ma'am?" the footman asks. "Yes, thank you," you reply, rising from the table. Back in the drawing room, you sink into an armchair near the fire. The day has grown cold as night falls, and the warmth is welcome. You notice a decanter of brandy on a side table and briefly consider a nightcap, but decide against it. Victorian spirits were often adulterated with all sorts of harmful substances to increase profits. A maid brings coffee on a silver tray, setting it on a table within your reach before withdrawing silently. The coffee is strong and bitter, but the warmth is comforting. You gaze into the fire, contemplating everything you've learned about the hidden dangers of Victorian life. It's been less than a day and you've already identified dozens of potential hazards, from arsenic wallpaper to lead paint, from gas lighting to toxic medicines, from dangerous staircases to contaminated food. And yet, there's a certain charm to this world as well. The attention to detail in craftsmanship, the formality that lends significance to daily activities, the clear boundaries and expectations. It's alien to your modern sensibilities, but you can see why people of this era found comfort in their ordered existence. The clock chimes 8. Still early by your standards, but in Victorian times, especially during winter, people often retired early to conserve expensive candles and lamp oil. You finish your coffee and stand, stretching discreetly within the confines of your corset. Your back aches from the unfamiliar posture constraints, and you long to be free of all these layers. The house has grown quiet. You can hear the servants moving about downstairs, finishing their evening duties. Soon they'll bank the fires for the night and retire to their own quarters, typically located on the top floor or in the basement. You make your way upstairs to your bedroom, holding your skirts carefully to avoid tripping. The gas lamps in the hallway have been turned down to a soft glow, just enough to see by. Your bedroom feels welcoming now, the fire still burning cheerfully in the grate. The maid has turned down the bed, laying out a nightgown on the coverlet. You reach behind you, trying to unfasten your dress, but the buttons are impossible to reach. You'll need help undressing, just as you needed help dressing. Victorian women of means were not expected to be able to dress themselves, another aspect of their dependency. You ring the bell, pull beside the bed, and within moments the maid appears. She helps you out of your evening dress, unlaces your corset, blessed relief, and assists you into the nightgown, a long white cotton garment with lace trim and tiny pearl buttons up the front. "Will there be anything else, Mum?" she asks. "No, thank you," you reply. "Good night." She curtsies and withdraws, taking your discarded clothing with her to be brushed and aired for tomorrow. Alone at last, you exhale deeply, feeling your ribs expand fully for the first time all day. The nightgown is surprisingly comfortable, the cotton soft against your skin. After the stiff formality of your day clothes, you climb into the high bed, sinking into the slightly lumpy mattress. The sheets are clean but coarser than you're used to. The pillows are filled with feathers that poke through the fabric occasionally. The fire has burned low, casting a gentle, flickering light across the room. No electric light switch by the bed here. Once the fire dies, you'll be in darkness until morning. You settle deeper into the bed, pulling the heavy quilts up around you. Despite all the hidden dangers you've discovered, you feel strangely at peace. Your body relaxes into the unfamiliar mattress, finding comfort in its firm support. The soft crackling of the dying fire creates a soothing rhythm that matches your slowing breath. Your muscles gradually release the tension from a day of navigating Victorian life, sinking heavier into the bedding as warmth envelops you. You yawn, stretching slightly under the weight of the quilts, feeling your eyes growing heavier as you watch the shadows dance across the ceiling. A loud bang from somewhere downstairs jolts you awake. Your heart races as you try to orient yourself. The fire has died down to embers, casting just enough light to remind you where you are, still trapped in this Victorian house with all its hidden dangers. You strain your ears, listening for any other sounds. Was it just a settling house, an intruder, or something more sinister? A gas explosion, perhaps? After a few minutes of silence, you begin to relax. Old houses make noises. Nothing to worry about. You settle back against the pillows, but sleep seems far away now. Your mind wanders to all the other dangers you haven't yet encountered in this Victorian home. What other hidden killers might be lurking in the beautiful surroundings? You think about the bathroom, or rather the lack of a proper one. Indoor plumbing was a luxury in Victorian times, and even wealthy homes often had rudimentary systems. The water closet you used earlier was a relatively advanced model for its time, but the sewage system it connected to was likely primitive by modern standards. Sewer gases, including methane, could build up in these early systems and sometimes leak back into the house. That's why Thomas Crapper's invention of the S-trap was so important. It created a water barrier that prevented gases from rising back through the pipes. But not all Victorian toilets had this feature yet. And what about the water itself? Victorian water supplies were often contaminated with bacteria from sewage. London's Great Stink of 1858 was a vivid demonstration of how bad things had gotten. The Thames had become an open sewer, and the stench was so unbearable that Parliament had to be suspended. Major cholera outbreaks were common until public health reforms improved water quality. Even in wealthy homes, water might be stored in lead-lined tanks, slowly poisoning the household. You shiver under the blankets, not just from the cooling room, but from the thought of all these invisible threats. The Victorians lived in a world of unseen dangers. Bacteria they couldn't detect, gases they couldn't smell, poisons they didn't recognise. Unable to fall back asleep, you sit up in bed and reach for the candlestick on the bedside table. Matches. Where would matches be? You fumble in the near darkness and find a small box. Carefully, you strike one against the side of the box. The match flares to life with a bright flare and a strong smell of sulphur. You quickly light the candle before the match burns your fingers. Early matches were dangerous things. Before the safety match was invented in 1855, people used lucifer matches that could ignite with the slightest friction. They contained white phosphorus, which caused a horrific occupational disease called phossy jaw in the factory workers who made them. The toxic phosphorus would enter the body through the gums, causing abscesses, bone decay, and eventual disfigurement as the jawbone literally rotted away. Workers' faces would glow in the dark from the phosphorus in their systems. Many died painful deaths, while others committed suicide rather than face the progressive deformity. The candle gives a steady, warm light, much safer than those early matches. You look around the room, seeing it differently in the soft glow. Shadows dance on the wallpaper, bringing the patterns to life. Your nightgown provides little warmth and the fire is nearly out. You consider ringing for a servant to rekindle it, but it seems cruel to wake someone just for your comfort. Instead, you spot a dressing gown laid across a chair and pull it on over your nightclothes. The thick wool instantly provides warmth. You slide your feet into slippers and decide to explore the house by candlelight. It feels adventurous, almost rebellious to wander a Victorian home at night. You open your bedroom door carefully, trying to avoid any creaks that might wake the household. The hallway is dark and silent. You lift your candle higher, watching the shadows retreat from its light. The grand staircase looks different at night, more imposing, almost threatening. You descend slowly, one hand holding the candle, the other clutching the banister. The steps seem steeper in the dim light, and you're acutely aware of how easily you could fall. Household accidents were a leading cause of death in Victorian times, and stairs were particularly dangerous. You reach the bottom safely and pause, considering which way to go. The drawing room holds little interest now. You've already explored it thoroughly. Instead, you turn toward the back of the house, curious about the kitchen and service areas you haven't yet seen. A long corridor leads past the dining room toward what must be the servants' domain. You follow it, your slippers silent on the wooden floor. The house feels large